Hi, Dan Verton, Executive Editor with MeriTalk. We're here at the Cybersecurity Brainstorm in Washington, D.C., and I'm here talking with Mr. Joe Kirschbaum, who's with the General Accountability Office. Joe, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, Dan.
So Joe, we just recently did a survey at MeriTalk looking at the insider threat throughout the federal government. We found that it looks like formal insider threat detection programs are still in their infancy in a lot of places. What is the status of insider threat programs in the Defense Department?
Well, we found that the Department of Defense has made significant progress in insider threats, and that's for two reasons. The first of which is a lot of the component parts that comprise insider threats have existed before. The Department of Defense has well-established and well-practiced programs to do things like anti-terrorism force protection, to protect facilities and people from outside the wire. Shifting that focus inside is in some cases an adaptation of those policies and procedures, and the department has been practicing those. In addition, particularly since the national level requirements for minimum standards for insider threat programs and the department's own requirement last year that the department and the services stand up insider threats programs, they have taken action to solidify those.
Okay.
So we found action in a lot of cases for those programs to be set up. And we also found that the minimum standards that were set up by the National Insider Threats Task Force have been undertaken by the department with, in some cases, full implementation, in some cases partial, but there's still work to be done in the department to complete those.
Now, when we look at the insider threat program, the foundational aspects of an effective insider threat program, it's often not a matter of screening people out at the time of employment, because most malicious insiders are loyal and law-abiding at the time of their hiring.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the aspects of an effective insider threat program if it's not a matter of screening people out?
It's really a matter of determining what's normal in an organization, what the expectation for normal, and then what the deviations from normal might be, as a tipping and cueing mechanism to indicate that something is amiss, whether something actually happens damaging or not. That at its heart is really what we're talking about here. And so you can tell by that description that it isn't all peculiar to insider threats. That's the same kind of description you could give for a lot of threat-based anomalies. So, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying before. A lot of this takes from traditional disciplines of risk management, threat detection, response. For insider threats, it's largely a matter of bringing many of those disciplines together, bringing the information together. And the insider threats programs and the standards that the Department of Defense has been acting on does that. It's starting to move in that direction and bring those things together.
Right.
Now, what we found in addition is there are, going back to those older programs like counterterrorism, counterintelligence, force protection, and there are techniques, policies, standards, practices that would further the department's efforts, not just the department level, but the military services, the department components. So what we did is we examined those programs. We looked at related policies and procedures, related doctrine. We looked outside the Department of Defense for best practices, such as Carnegie Mellon. And then we established what we looked at as a framework for insider threats programs that kind of goes over and above what the department is doing. And then we found instances in the department where they're already taking action on some of those, and then we recommended that the department look further at those additional efforts, and the department agreed with that and is starting to do that.
So you bring up a good point, because we're looking outside of the department for a moment. How does what the department is doing, the Defense Department doing on insider threat programs, differ from what, say, the intelligence community is doing with its continuous monitoring efforts? I mean, are they one and the same type of program, or are they different?
Well, in terms of the individual techniques and tools that may differ, but the concepts are the same. And it's also important to note that 8 members of the intelligence community are Department of Defense components. So at a minimum, they're supposed to be responding, and they are responding to the department's requirements. And then also there's the linkage with the Director of National Intelligence, who sits on some of the oversight mechanisms. So there's a lot of compatibility with both the concepts of how these are supposed to be executed and on how they're doing it.
Okay. So we heard a lot today about both technology and the human element of the insider threat. At the end of the day, And you started out with this point, which is we need to find out what's normal so that we can determine, okay, what patterns of behavior are abnormal. So at the end of the day, is this a technology problem or is this a human problem?
The snide answer would be yes, but I believe at the end it's more of a human problem, because all the technology, all the tools we gather are only going to bring us that kind of warning, that tipping and cueing. The human element and whether it's analytical side, whatever it is going to fill in the rest of the answer. So that's what's required. And what's interesting is not just from the day-to-day kind of threat detection side of things, but it's also on how the important insider threats, elements of an insider threats program are socialized throughout the Department of Defense and throughout the government. Mm-hmm. That's the human element too.
Right.
To explain how important it is, how important the training is, and the individual and the group basis. That's critical.
All right. I guess technology could probably help in terms of the inadvertent disclosure of personal or classified information by law-abiding, loyal employees.
Absolutely.
Maybe a technology to help keep them from accidentally doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, and those tools, it's going to be a constant game of determining what tools are going to help which elements, and then which tools can be integrated into a broader system of systems, as it were.
Well, Joe, thanks so much for being here today. Really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Dan.
I'm Dan Verton, Executive Editor with MeriTalk. Thank you very much for watching.